So good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and together with Georgina Humphreys, we are going to present you the TREIO project, some of the tools that we have developed for purposes of judicial cooperation training, and more specifically in the domain of the European investigation order. But we'll also try to give some context to all these developments and how they correlate to the European initiative that takes place in the moment. So this is the agenda for today. We are going to first comment on these ongoing digitalization efforts on European level, where the TREIO project fits into all of this. And then we'll move to the different tools that we've dedicated this webinar to. Georgina will speak about the TREIO eLearning course. It follows a number of topics on the EIO exchanges, from legal to business to the operational side, and the use of the specially developed system for these exchanges. And then I will move forward with a short presentation of the system simulator that we have developed and how it could be useful for training purposes. And then we will finish with some questions from your side, as far as there are any, but also on some important information of how you can receive access to all these tools, not just yourself, but also the colleagues that you engage with, or if you want to escalate this issue on a high level, for example, to your competent authority to provide for a mass training or something, this is also a matter that we can discuss. So first, how did we reach this point? Apologies. So as you might know, there are a number of developments that takes place in the recent years in the domain of digitalization, and most of them are focused on the possibilities of electronic exchange of information in cross-border transactions and exchange of evidences. In reality, it all started back in 2010 with a member states initiated project for designing secure communication channel for data exchanges between the member states. And this is what later on is known as the eCodex system. It was the original project was finalized in 2016. And following its success, there were a number of spin-off initiatives, of sites projects dedicated to different judicial cooperation use cases that took place, but also the Commission recognized the value of this infrastructure. And after several years of negotiations, a special regulation was adopted in 2022, defining the roles, the responsibilities, and the overall legal framework for how to operate the Codex system, which became, in fact, the EU, the official EU communication system with regards to exchange of information and data between judicial authorities. During this whole process, again, back in 2016, as I said, Commission recognized the value of these communication channels, and they decided to initiate the development of a common for the member states e-evidence digital exchange system that is now known as reference implementation software, and to pilot this system for exchanging messages and documents exactly with regards to the European investigation order, the mutual legal assistance forms, and the interception of telecommunication notifications, considering the just coming into application of the EIO directive at the time. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 crisis, the launch of this eEDES system was delayed several times, and it was finally launched in a piloting mode in May 2022. To date, we have 11 member states who have joined the platform in a piloting mode, and you can see them on the screen. This means that they have not launch the system nationwide, but there are a number of competent authorities from each state that currently operate the eEDES system and exchange messages through this system. So depending on how the system was implemented in the different member states, we have a variety of end result situations. So some member states use it as a standalone system in addition to their national ones. Others integrate eEDES with their national case management systems. There are some hybrid options in between. We have also several member states that are just on the finalizing their launching processes on using eEDES, while other member states are a bit delayed, and we expect them to join the platform in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, this is about the technical developments, and these are the two most important systems that reflect on our work and the tools that we have created. However, the Commission also initiated a number of legislative and organizational initiatives, and the most important one started in December 2021, when the legislative proposal package on the digitalization of judicial cooperation was adopted. And 2 years later, just now in December 2023, a regulation on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal cases was officially adopted. It's already in force, but it will apply from 1st of May 2025. This new regulation brings new rules regarding video conferencing or other distant communication technologies used in oral hearings. It covers electronic communication between natural or legal persons or their representatives and competent authorities. It provides for rules on the recognition of documents with electronic signatures or seals, but also covers the payment of fees through electronic means. What's most important for the EIO exchanges is that in reality, this regulation not only amends a number of legislative acts in judicial cooperation, but also states that 24 legislative instruments, among which is the European Investigation Order, should explore communication via electronic means using the secure communication channels provided by the eCodex system. And this digitalization process shall become mandatory for all the member states. And the use of the eCodex system shall become mandatory for the member states. The Commission also provides voluntary adoption of the reference implementation software that they have developed, but the member states have the possibility to opt for using this eEDES system or to decide to proceed with a national implementation specifically designed for these particular exchanges. Now, 24 legislative instruments sounds quite a lot to happen at a single time. And this is why we have this roadmap developed for launching eEDES over time. So the use of the eCodex and the potential use of eEDES shall apply for the service of documents and taking of evidence for civil and commercial cases from 2025. And then on, you can see the gradual approach undertaken by the Commission on digitalizing the communication for all the other judicial cooperation instruments. And then you can see the European Investigation Order here, where the digital exchange of forms and communication in this regard will become mandatory for the member states in 2028. Now I'm going to show you a bit of a technical slide, but I just wanted to make sure that we all understand how this infrastructure works. So imagine Italy is on this side. This is a competent authority in Italy. Italy decided to in my imagination, of course, Italy decided to use the reference implementation for EIO exchanges. Behind the use of the system, there is a connection with the eCodex communication channel, and there is a communication point linked to a communication point of eCodex in a different member states that again uses the reference implementation. So on the other side of the communication channel, there is a competent authority, let's say in the Netherlands, that uses again an instance of the eEDES system. You don't need to care about this communication here that takes place between the systems. It's a secure channel specifically designed for the judicial purposes. So this is what you need to know. It's designed from member states to member states. It's maintained by the Commission, by the European agencies, and all the communication goes through a really secure channel. What's important for the purposes of this webinar is how the system looks and feels. It's the interface and the functionalities are one and the same for all the member states involved. And currently the system is implemented solely for the EIOs, MLAs, and ITNs, but all the other judicial cooperation instruments will be built on top of that. So once you get familiar with these first judicial cooperation instruments, every time when they add a new one, it will be pretty easy to get along and to learn how it works. Because the main framework, the main functionality will remain the same, the only thing that will change are actually the forms for that particular judicial cooperation instrument, plus the respective operational and legislative requirements that goes with these different forms. But I will show you when we reach the point for presenting the TREIO eEDES simulator. I will show you how the system looks, and then you can evaluate for yourself. It's pretty user-friendly interface. The one important aspect is that it provides, it's not only available in all the European languages, but it also provides for automated translation. Automated translation does not substitute the official translation needed by the respective judicial cooperation instrument, but it could be very helpful in urgent cases or for operational purposes to better understand and easy understand what's going on in the respective request and act upon it while waiting for additional documents. So where does the TREIO project stand in all of this? The project itself is initiated back in 2019, 2020. And at the time we saw these developments, we saw not only how fragmented in some ways the implementation of the EIO directive was between the member states, but also that this is a brand new system and people will require training on how to use it. And considering this, it's a unified system for all member states. Of course, there should have been a unified training framework for that. And this is where we started from. We first developed a person-to-person training framework, and training materials encompass information from legal, business point of view, but also on the very operational side, including guidelines on how to use the eEDES system for EIO exchanges, for MLA exchanges, going through the different stages with the different section of the annexes, and commenting on specific peculiarities in this regard. All these materials have been designed in such a way to allow for national adaptations. And in reality, in most of the member states where we have conducted trainings or any other awareness activities, these materials have been adapted by the local professionals, adding information on case law, commenting on specific aspects of the national workflow for the EIO exchanges or on the different competencies given to the parties involved. These training materials are translated in 16 different languages beyond the original English set, including in Italian. And then, having all these materials, we have started providing for a number of train-the-trainer activities, online trainings to the member states, and a number of awareness activities just like this webinar. Then based on experience and also the different stages of readiness of the member states, we understood that by the end of the project, this type of activities not only won't be enough, but they will be far less efficient than we have wanted in the very beginning. This is why we have the TREIO eLearning course that provides for legal and business training on the EIO, but also simulates, together with the TREIO eEDES simulator, the work of the system. The TREIO eEDES simulator is an exact replica of the original system provided by the Commission, but on top of it, we have functionality specifically developed and delivered for training purposes. But I will talk about the simulator a bit later and won't take time on this for the moment. And now we are at the final stages of the project. We are to provide the TREIO toolkit, which consists not only of these tools as complete sets, but also provides for guidelines to the member states and to the different audiences on how all these materials can be used. We have special sets for end user professionals, meaning prosecutors, judges, court staff directly involved in the EIO exchanges. We also have a set provided to trainers that are interested to deliver such training on national level in their own countries. And we also have a set of materials for competent authorities, which are willing to adopt the TREIO methodology and to adjust all these materials for their specific needs. So this is the point that we have reached, and considering the most important tools for professionals are the e-learning course and the eEDES simulator, we are going to focus more on those two. And now Georgina will take over and she will present the TREIO e-learning course.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, so I will cover some information on the TREIO e-learning course, which focuses on all things EIO and eEDES in this regard. So we have three specific aspects of the TREIO online training. So we have an e-learning platform set up. We have devised an online self-paced training, which includes all content and materials, and we have select language versions. But to complement that, we have, as Alex has already mentioned, the TREIO eEDES simulator, which provides a safe place for real-time training experience. And bringing that all together provides the TREIO online training and tools for training in the judicial audience. So we have specific use cases for the TREIO training package. There are actually two packages, a full package and an eEDES package. The full package focuses on the EIO, the directive, forms, and eEDES. And the eEDES package focuses solely on the TREIO eEDES simulator as a means to learn how to use eEDES and where and why you might use different forms, etc. We also have used the full package as a form of refresher training. So, for example, if professionals are either instructed or have self-evaluated that maybe there are some areas where they need to raise their awareness or boost their knowledge, then they are able to cherry pick content from the full package to provide themselves with a refresher training. There are several benefits we feel of the TREIO online training, and of course the most prominent is an increased awareness of the EIO directive, the EIO form, and use of eEDES. The training takes form in a user-centered learning style with an active learning approach, where each professional is responsible for their own learning. Meaning there is no instructor required. It allows for greater flexibility and accessibility in this case. So, for example, we're aware that professionals don't have the time maybe to undertake training for a week, but you might have a few hours here and there. You might have a couple of days in a row, or might be able to scatter your time in some way. So to increase the availability, we've included this self-paced means to do so. We had several and still have several aims and objectives. We look at the fact of professionals requiring a structured knowledge of the EIO directive and the EIO procedures, for people to be able to identify investigative measures and the typical difficulties and how to overcome those in the application of the EIO. We also thought about the procedures for transmission and receipt of an EIO and being aware of those, and also how to use eEDES in all of those aspects. And in doing so, using the TREIO eEDES simulator. And by the end of the training, the participants should have a well-rounded knowledge of all things EIO and be able to at least have an awareness and understanding of how to use eEDES. The e-learning takes format, as I have mentioned, online as a self-paced course. We have two packages. The full package takes up to 1 week, and the eEDES package takes 2-3 days. However, that being said, it probably doesn't take someone a full week to do the full package. It's more allowing for time for breaks, for practice, for exercises, and other things in between. The master copy of the training is in English. However, there are select translations, and we have targeted multiple stakeholders. So whether you be a judge, prosecutor, administrator or clerk, or anything in between, so anyone handling the EIO process or eEDES, this training should be useful. The training consists of 5 modules in total, and that's both packages. It's just the eEDES package is slightly shorter, with slightly different lessons, but both comprise of 5 modules, as you can see them here. We have several take-home tasks, as we've called them, but these are practical exercises, which I will come to in a bit. And then we also have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which is the thread between all of the modules and all of the exercises. And the content appears in a collection of theory and practice. So we include the legal requirements, procedures and best practice, and case law, which is likely to be largely in textual content. However, we have transformed some of the information into visual aids. We have some videos in short snippets and also some demonstrations and tutorials. We have exercises, as I mentioned, using the TREIO eEDES simulator, but we also have some simulations which are embedded in the course. And we have some quizzes embedded, usually at the end of modules or at the end of specific exercises. And then we have the examination at the end. We will flick through a few examples here. So we have some text-based content. We also have some graphics, and there are some animations in either video format. Some of them are also interactive clickable elements. As you can see here, we have quizzes as well, and the exam appears in a similar style to the quizzes. Familiarity is important there. We have demonstrations, and these are usually broken down into chunks. You can use the subtitling, and there is no sound in these demonstrations. We're mindful that you're probably in an office environment or maybe have people around you at times. when you're able to perform training, so sound is not an option, but you can slow down and pause the videos, and you can follow along with the TREIO eEDES simulator. Here is one example, and we'll just show a short snippet of this, but it's an example of one of the demonstrations. As you can see, I mentioned there are subtitles. In this case, it's English. So the subtitles are either short or long, depending on what we're trying to inform you about or explaining. You can see that the video is split into chunks along the bottom. These chunks are usually broken down into sections or specific points that we want to raise awareness to. Each section may or may not include additional information. This usually appears on the right-hand side as a document / a plus. And when you click on it, it provides more information. So in this case, it's about selecting the right competent authority. But in another example, it could be something about translations or other things related to the EIO process and form. We also have, as I mentioned, some embedded simulations. These are within the content itself. They are not in the TREIO eEDES simulator, but we expect participants to follow along afterwards also with the TREIO eEDES simulator. As you can see, we have some clickable elements here that you follow through. We're not able to input text in this simulation, so we've done that for you. So there will be some text, and you are able to go through the process as if you are filling out the EIO form. So this case, we're actually filling out an ITN. And then we have the practical exercises, which I mentioned. There are a minimum set, but there are actually 10 in total. They focus on different aspects of the EIO workflow, and each exercise has a scenario and a task. And we have two versions of many of the practical exercises, one with guided instructions. So we say, please do A, B, C, D, E. And then you follow through, and then we give you the extension exercise, and we say, here is the scenario, here is the task. It's similar to the one that we've just guided you through, but now try with no instructions. So you will just see a scenario and a task, and then you're expected to sign into the TREIO eEDES simulator and action that exercise without instructions. Obviously, you can go back to the previous exercise, which you will have to hand, and follow the instructions if you cannot remember or recall the steps to perform. The training is designed for all stakeholders. We've thought of different end users in the judiciary professionals, and you have access to both training packages, so the full version and the eEDES version, so a shorter version. There's accesses to the quiz and final examination within the training itself, so it's all embedded in one package. And then you'll have separate access to the exercises as well to perform in the TREIO eEDES simulator, providing that safe haven to perform training exercises. We've also considered trainers in this. While I said the training is self-paced and requires no instructor, there is possibility to have a trainer. So the trainer requires not only access to the content, but also access to the storyboards and solutions to the quizzes and exams. And then we have thought about the competent authorities as well. So mindful that the competent authorities may embed the training into their own LMS, or may want to contextualize the content further to the national setting and requirements. We're providing all materials, including all the developer files, so images, graphics, etc. And also a developer manual, which includes information about mapping of the content within the course and the developer files themselves. And now I'll hand back to Alex, who will focus on the TREIO eEDES simulator in the context of the EIO business workflow.
Thank you, Georgina. So I think we reach maybe the most interesting part today, where we actually touch and feel how the eEDES system looks like and what are the additional features that we offer for training purposes. In an ideal training environment, there will be 2 professionals on both sides of the communication channel. So you would interact with another peer during the training or with the trainer itself, and they all will work on different instances of the eEDES system through their profiles. However, in a self-paced environment, this is not really possible because you simply don't have your training buddy with you. So we have tried to substitute the partner side with the TREIO autoresponder, meaning that every time when you perform an exercise, one of the exercises that we have designed for you, there is a predefined scenario guiding you on how to fill certain sections of the EIO, how to perform certain steps in the EIO exchange. And every time when you go through those steps, the TREIO autoresponder provides you with feedback that you can expect from the receiving side or the executing or the issuing side, depending on the scenario that you are in. So again, a bit of a technical slide, but this will explain not only the logic behind our simulator, but also how we have tried to do it as closely as possible to a real-time situation that you may experience when start using the system per se. So for the purposes of the project, we have installed a real eCodex communication point that is connected to the real eCodex communication channel infrastructure. On one side, it is the eEDES simulator that we have developed. As I said, it is an exact replica of the original system provided by the Commission with some additional features that we have developed for training purposes. Every time when one of the TREIO participants sent a request or different communication message with regards to an ongoing request, it goes through the eCodex contact point, goes through the eCodex channel, but it does not reach a real competent authority. It reaches the TREIO autoresponder. And in the e-learning course, there are a lot of details on how to implement all these scenarios, but you can also implement them completely independently. So what you see in the system are real notification for messages, real responses, but not from another competent authority, but from the TREIO autoresponder. And this provides you with a safe environment to experiment and learn by doing without messing up with the original EIO workflow that would go through the member states. These are the 10 scenarios that Georgina mentioned. So you see from the title of each scenario that we have tried to cover the key steps of sending an EIO or executing an EIO. The first 7 scenarios cover different aspects of steps performed by the sender of the EIO, and then the last 3 of specific aspects performed on the receiving side. As already mentioned, each of these scenarios goes with specific instructions, how to implement the steps in order to receive the proper feedback from the system. They are contextualized in the e-learning course, depending on the section, the topic, the legal aspect that is commented at that particular moment in the materials. But if you use them independently, of course, you need to have some experience with EIOs. Each of these scenarios follows if and then behavior. This means that on each of the steps that we have guided you through these scenarios, there is an expected response on behalf of the system. Of course, if you do something else, the system won't respond in this way. But for training purposes, this is we believe, the best approach to explore certain topics. And then you're free to experiment on your own. So how in reality all this happens? When you go to the system and you would like to issue an EIO, you assume the position of the issuing state, and then the autoresponder will become the executing state. So when you need to select the executing state, you don't select the Netherlands or Portugal or any other of the real member states. You go down to the list and you select the TREIO autoresponder. This way, you can perform all the exercises in the expected way. For the last three scenarios, if you want to execute an EIO, you go to the eEDES simulator and then you assume the position of the executing state. And then, in order to execute an EIO, you need to first receive it. So you ask the TREIO autoresponder, being in the position of the issuing state, to deliver an EIO to you. And these are the three scenarios that could be performed based on that delivery. Now, each of you participating in our webinars will receive complimentary access to both tools. And now I will briefly show you how you can enter the eEDES simulator based on the username and password that we give you, and what will happen once you enter the system. So let me just switch the screens. So I already log in, but I will just log out for the purposes of this demonstration. You write down the username that we give you. It will look something like that, TREIO plus numbers. You put your username, you put your password, and then you sign in. When you sign in the system, you will see this is indeed an exact replica of the system that is provided by the Commission, but with a small icon, meaning that this is our version of the system, being the simulator. Here you can see your username, and next to it, there is a username menu, user menu, where you can see your profile. Here are the different roles that are assigned to you on using the system. In real life, these will be assigned to you by your competent authority. You can either be the author of the EIO, the signer, the reviewer, the sender of the EIO. For training purposes, we have given you all these roles so you can explore all possible options of the system. Here you can change the language. Now it's in English, but we can then switch it to Italian, and then you'll see all the menus, all the text, everything in Italian. I will just go back to English because I don't speak Italian. Sorry for this. But once you go to the system, you'll see that there are no differences, no matter which is the language version you choose. You receive a lot of notifications coming in with the EIO Data Exchange. You can see them here. And then you can actually start working with the system. So this is a dummy account that we use for the purposes of this webinar. This is why we don't have issued EIOs. This is not an EIO training, so we are not going into all the possible details, but we just wanted to show you snippets of how the system looks and feels, so you are more aware of it. If you go to the Start a New Request button, you can actually initiate any type of request that the system is designed for. So if you go to the Start a New Request button, you see different options. Would you like to start an EIO? Would you like to start an MLA? Would you like to start an ITN? We select an EIO, and then here you put the subject of your request. It could be quite a long name. You can make it as detailed as possible, depending on how your practice, what your practice is. The purpose here is to make it understandable to the other side. You don't need to sign in, for example, the case of the national, the number of the national case or something like that, because there is another field where you can put this information. The purpose here is for the other side to understand you. So let's just give a dummy title. For example, request for bank data. And then we initiate an actual EIO. In the very first page, you have the overview of the EIO. Once you progress through filling in, sending it, or if you are already on the executing side, all this information changes depending on the status of the EIO exchange. You can see here all the professionals from your institutions that are also assigned to this EIO case. And once you progress with the EIO exchange, you can see also all the documents here. And I will show you in a bit how a received EIO looks like so you can understand better these options. And then you can proceed with filling the actual Annex A of the EIO, going from one section to the next. Each of these sections replicates the paper version of the annexes established by the EIO directive. What's different here is that there are fields marked as mandatory, meaning that you cannot proceed with issuing the EIO without filling in the most important aspects that you need to fill in. And anytime during the filling of the EIO, you can validate your responses. And then you can see where there are missing mandatory fields to help you expedite the filling in of the EIO form. At each step of the process, you have different actions that you can perform. Currently, we are at the very early stages of the EIO request, so the only thing that we can do is to complete it. But every time when you move from one stage to the next, there are different options here that appear. And another important feature here is the event and message timeline. Here you see all the notifications in a chronological order for everything that happened with this EIO exchange. And this notification comes not only from the eEDES system, but they also come from the eCodex infrastructure. So you know for sure that your message has been received by the other competent authority, and so on and so on. I will show you now how a received request looks like, just to be able to see what happens when you progress with an EIO. Let's try this one. Yes, okay, this is a good example. So here we have received an EIO. We are on the receiving side. The EIO has been issued by the TREIO autoresponder, and now we interact as the receiving side. You can go through the overview. You can see how the status changed here, because we already have responded with Annex B. You can also see there are no other professionals assigned to this case but you. But you can also see all the documents that are part of these exchanges, plus all the applicable deadlines related to this EIO exchange. And then you can go back, review what's the information in Annex A, just to remind yourself. You can review how you replied with Annex B. But then if you go to the event and message on timeline, you can see that now the number of notification has changed. And also, just to remind you what I mentioned about the workflow, considering this is quite an advanced stage in the process, if you go to the workflow, you can see how many different options you can have now that you didn't have before. And then you can act upon all these options based on your roles. So as I said, this is quite intuitive, quite user-friendly. The system also provides you with several supporting features. For example, If you have a lot of received requests, like we have it here, you can perform a number of searches and filters that could easily help you find the EIO that you are looking for. Here from the dashboard, you have access to all the catalogs of issued requests. As I said, we don't have any here, but ideally you have many. You can access directly all the received requests and then all the drafts that are currently in progress. You can, if you have the rights, assign additional users. You see immediately the type of request that you are working on in this particular draft. And here you can also see the status. Status changes when you reach a certain stage. For example, if you have reached filling in section L or section K, this will change here from Annex A. And every time when there is an official, completed official stage, you also see how the status changes here. For example, if you go to received request, now the status is received. And so on. I'm not going to go into any more details because then we reach the stage at filling in an actual EIO, which is not the purpose of today's training. But this is just really a touch and feel of the system for your reference. Also here you have a list of deadlines, just to remind you at the very first glance if there are any deadlines expiring or anything that you need to pursue within today's emergency, for example. So I'm going back to my presentation just to finish with some final aspects on how you can actually access these tools. So as I already told you, you as a participant in today's webinar will receive complimentary access within this week for both the e-learning course and the eEDES simulator. However, on the project website, we are currently designing a toolkit section and gradually uploading all these training materials that I mentioned, the different methodologies and guidelines, including the different language versions. So in the next 10 days, you will receive access, including to the Italian translation of all the materials, if this is of interest to you. And if you decide to guide your peers at the workplace, you can use some of the guidelines that we provide for training purposes on how to best explain all these aspects of the system. When you receive access to the e-learning course, you also find there the official user manual for the system, but also all the exercises and everything that we provide with regard to the use of the system. If any of your colleagues that is not present today, or anyone within your network that has not been part of the TREIO project so far, or the webinars, they could still sign up for free to receive this access. And they can do so by going to the link that you see on the screen, and they can apply for access details. It usually takes a couple of days, but in case you don't receive the access details in time, just check first the spam box and then write to us if you still cannot find that email. One important note that applies to both you as complimentary receivers of this access, but also to anyone who signs up in future. At the very beginning, you receive a username and password that are one and the same for accessing all possible tools. When you go to the e-learning course, you'll be required to change your password for security reasons, and then you have a new password for using the e-learning course. But the original password will remain for the purposes of using the eEDES simulator and the TREIO autoresponder. So every time when you perform an exercise or you just want to play with the system, you need to use the original passwords that we have forwarded you in the very beginning. So basically, that's it from our side. As I mentioned, you receive the recordings of today's session. You receive this presentation along with access details. Considering the webinars is still ongoing, just be a bit patient and you will receive all the details by the end of this week. It won't happen immediately after the webinar. So now it's time for your questions or comments if you have any. So we are at your disposal to reply to the best of our abilities. You can initiate a conversation directly, or you can comment in the chat based on your preferences. Do you have any comments, any requests for additional information? We have received some comments from the registration forms, but most of them actually concerned a number of topics that we have discussed in our presentation on the different modalities of the training materials, on the different modalities of the tools, on how trainers or competent authorities could make use of these materials. So I don't think that it's very useful to go through these commentaries once more. There was some technical comments from the audience in the registration forms that might be found useful to you. So one of the comments of your peers regarded the exchange of attachments and large files. So the systems allow for a number of different formats, including the exchanges of video files, audio files, and so on, with quite a big size. But the current limitation of the size files comes from the eCodex infrastructure that is established. So everything that is beyond 500 megabytes should be considered, you should consider sending it over a different channel. Otherwise, the system accepts these sizes up to this or different formats. One other comment was about how to register and how to use the system. We already showed you that what's important to understand that this is not the real system. This is not a national implementation. This is just a specific implementation of the eEDES system that is designed for training purposes. I know Italy is currently working on implementing the eEDES system on national level, but this is the opportunity for you to get to know the system before it launches officially. There might be differences in some of the features on how the system is integrated, for example, to the national case management system or whatever the solution in Italy is. But the main aspects on filling in an EIO, the main functionalities will remain the same. So you can exercise before that. And there was also another practical question on the language to be used. Don't forget that the system doesn't change the legal requirement for language versions or official translations as prescribed by the directive. So there is no change there. The automated translation serves only for purely operational purposes and nothing more. If the receiving side acknowledges EIOs in English and Portuguese, for example, these are the languages that you should proceed with or provide an official translation into. One other important aspect that comes from our own experience with trainees, it's important. This is a training system. So it's not meant for real data or for inputting any personal data there. It's meant only for training data in TREIO Sense exploring modalities of using the system. So please avoid putting any sensitive information there in this sense. So I think I've exhausted the most important questions coming from the registration forms. It might also answer some of your questions that you may have, but if you would like to expand on something additional, let me know. Okay, yeah, I see there is a comment in the chat. What is the link between this system and the cooperation with the magistrate desk in Eurojust? Eurojust is involved in this too. As far as we are aware, they currently develop a special role in the system for Eurojust representatives that would support the EIO Exchange. But this role is not yet officially presented in the system. It is still in progress.
Ok, giusto
so
perfetto. Lei l'ha già conosciuta, sì.
So this is something that is coming, but it is not yet implemented. Same, for example, applies for the choice of competent authority. So currently there is a reference in the system to the EGN Atlas, but this reference is not automated. So you need to actually go to the EGN Atlas, select the proper competent authority, and then you go back to the system and put the right name. As far as we are aware, the European Commission is working on such integration to make this choice of competent authorities supported by the EGN Atlas in an automated way, but it is currently not yet implemented. Okay. Any other questions from your side? Okay. You can, once you receive access, you can explore the tools. And if you have any questions regarding the use of the tools, or maybe a question like this one on the involvement of Eurojust or something else, you can always come back to us over email, and we will do our best to respond in the best possible way in a timely manner. So this is not the end of our conversation in this sense. You are free to come to us with all the questions you may have. If you don't know the answers, we'll definitely know who is the one who could know it. So we'll help you in any way. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we are going to close for the day. Thank you very much for being here, for participating, for paying attention to everything that we've said. And we wish you not only a nice week, but also a nice, joyful experience with the tools. And again, we are here for you if you need us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you. Thank you a lot. Stay in touch.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye. Bye.